Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. This is the SpaceWolf DT140. Featuring Furry branded 1506 3400 kV motors, HGL-RC flight stack, F4 flight controller with an OSD, 28 amp ESC, power switchable 0 to 200 milliwatt video transmitter, XT30 for your battery connection. It has a buzzer, nondescript 3-inch tri-blade props, a 600 TV line CCD camera. Looks like the arms are 4mm thick, 1.5mm bottom plate, 1.5mm top plate. Camera mounting plates are probably 1.5mm too. 30mm tall flight stack. It weighs 147 grams. The DT140 here comes very, very closely spec'd to the HGL-RC XJB145. There's not really hardly any difference as far as the frame design, other than we've got a sandwich plate here with the DT140 versus a single bottom plate on the XJB. I suppose if you want to pick it apart a little bit more, this one also uses some carbon fiber around through here, and it brings the stack down quite close, but that may be a plus or minus for you. You have to weigh that. And then we have 2mm standoffs here, where this are M3, and they're much more beefy. So you may be looking for something like this with the replaceable arms and everything. I didn't find where the arms had any movement like we've seen in some other machines. Everything was locked down pretty tight. But unfortunately, I had a serious crash, which you saw that one flight that I had. That wasn't even truly a full flight. You know, I wasn't done tuning it. It was just I wanted to take it out and fly it because I felt the tune was coming close, or I was going to be changing props, because I actually kind of felt like I couldn't get it to respond quite like I wanted to. I fully expected this to fly very similarly to this, but this is, in my opinion, the way this is set up with these props, with these motors, that this is much more agile. And it actually, because it's 17 grams less, the way I have them here without the top mounting plate and the antennas and everything, the way I have them, there's a 17 gram difference. This one actually outperforms this by quite a bit in thrust maneuvers, you know, throwing it over the house, throwing it straight up in the air, and that could come down again to props. These props, I think, are much more pitchy, and I'm not certain what these props pitch are, so that could be what's holding it back. Fortunately, I had to show you that flight because after that crash, which I actually caught on camera because it happened right over there by the fire pit, not only did we break the camera, which is pretty obvious, but this front right-left motor is now stuttering. Actually, I had to take the motor apart and put it back together because I did find where one of the windings had actually come loose. And I just kind of pushed it back around to where the motor would spin freely. and after pushing that winding back around, I'm not much of a motor repair guy, so many of you out there could have taken care of this yourself and gotten this thing back up and running. But in my particular case, I did what I could in order to get the motor to where it would rotate freely. It doesn't really notch anymore, but unfortunately, we now have this. Hopefully you heard it, but there's a little bit of a catching or a notchy sound. It stutters a little bit, and I did try to fly it that way, but unfortunately it just doesn't fly very well that way. I have had this about 2 weeks. I did ask for a replacement motor, but they do not have replacement motors in yet. So this is where we stand with the review. I think there's lots of potential in this machine, but really when it comes down to it, if the price point is the same, like tonight when I'm recording this, it comes down to $168 and some pennies versus the XJB145. The XJB is currently on sale, so that price may come up or come down, we don't know, but it's currently at $150. So there is a little bit of a price difference that we need to consider, you know, almost 20 bucks. Again, this is lighter, and to me that means quite a bit more. As far as the camera protection goes, this also has a lower flight stack, so maybe that same crash with the XJB, the camera would have been protected, but otherwise the specifications are very, very similar. We do have larger size motors on here, and I'm not sure that we can take advantage of those larger size motors with these props. I think we need to get some props that are very pitchy in order to be able to take advantage of those larger size props. There is an advantage to this one, as in if you wanted to mount something up here, it's going to be much easier because you have plenty of space to get a strap through the top plate. Like say you wanted to mount a HD cam, which we've seen on the channel, and I'll put right up here. So if you wanted to mount something like this and get some HD footage, you could do that here, and it would be quite simple. Get a nice flat top plate, and you've got plenty of room to strap stuff down. It is a bit of more a challenge. When I reviewed this, I did put it on this machine, and I had to do some modifications to my case. You'll see here, I had to make some notches in the case in order to fit down between these posts. Also, you could probably use something like this. This is the SQ12. I didn't review this. This has been reviewed to death, so I didn't bother. This one would fit down there much more neatly without any sort of modification. So if you're wanting to fly with something like this, I suggest the XJB145 because it is 17 grams less, and then you will offset the weight a little bit more with this versus adding the 17 grams to this, especially with the stock props on the DT140. I think the DT140 can be a fine machine. I just can't endorse it because I haven't been able to fly it enough, and they don't have replacement motors for this machine yet. There could be some close matches that are not freebie branded out there, but honestly, I didn't go looking for those. I went looking on GearBest for these particular motors, and they don't seem to have any at the time of this recording, and then when I inquired about them, there was none to be had, so that kind of ends where I'm at. They've got a beautiful flight stack in there. I am a big fan of the HGLRC flight stacks. This is the F428 with the TX02, I believe, VTX. Makes things super easy, super clean. The replaceable arms, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't know that it's really necessary. As much as I fly micros, I don't generally break the arms. Generally, I break one of the electronic components, the camera or the motor. I really haven't had too many problems. I had the Froggy frame that was a 135, but I had 1304 motors on that, and I was running 4S. Probably had way more weight than that carbon fiber was designed for. That's one of the few that I can think of where I actually broke an arm. But they did a nice clean job. You know, they put some orange heat shrink on here. I relocated the antennas down here. It shipped with the antennas attached up here, and they were kind of flippy-floppy around. I also added this zip tie here to give my antenna a better position, and I also added some JB Weld to the IPX connector right down in here. I keep saying JB Weld, but it's just called Welder. I don't know why I keep saying JB Weld, but this stuff is, it says permanently on there, but I find it peels right off. It's just a lot better than using hot glue as far as its resiliency and holding on. You may not feel that way. You might prefer to use hot glue, but this is what I've been using, and I found that this keeps the antennas on, and I can get the antennas off and switch them out if I do choose to. Also works great for tiny hoop repairs. On the specs, it does say that this is a run cam, but it is not. It's just a generic camera, and I did find that initially, because mine came out of the box just like this with a very flat camera angle, that in order to get the camera angle up, I had to actually take the top plate apart and loosen everything up, because the camera hits the top plate until you get an angle on it. And I do think that's a limiting factor, because you can see there, possibly on that left hand side over here by my finger, where the round part there in the top left corner is actually keeping the carbon fiber from going all the way down. So you have certain limited angle abilities, but you can take your Dremel out and grind that down. We've seen that done a few times before. I've done that myself. So where it will sit flat and you have the full range of camera angles. Otherwise, your camera angle is going to be a little bit limited by that top notch up there. Maybe the biggest advantage to this is if you do want to put a run cam split in here, you've got plenty of space to do it, versus the XJB145. You're not going to be getting it done over here. This is purely meant to run as it is. Whether you're interested in this product or another product, you should be aware that GearBest does have a 4th anniversary sale coming up. You do need to be quite patient and very willing to wait quite some time, because I do believe that GearBest does accept more orders for more stock than they have, so then we have to wait for GearBest to get more stock before they even start the long shipping process. I do think that if you live in the European area, that you do get your products a little bit quicker, not because of the stock issue, just because of the shipping. But if you're here in the States, that's something you need to be aware of. But if saving some money on a quad like this or others you might be eyeing, you might want to wait a few more days and buy during their sale period. That sale should be starting up here soon. On the 20th of March it should start, and then it will run in various levels through April 9th. I will post links in this video and in other videos, and I may create one particular video if they have some products that I'm particularly interested. I won't link products that I don't think are any good or that I haven't reviewed. I'm not going to stand behind you buying something that I can't stand behind. So the links that I'll have are machines that I've reviewed and that I trust that you will have a good experience with. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please leave those in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.